I want to take you now to New York City, where Police Commissioner Bill Bratton is holding a press conference about security following the attack in France.
Creativity that the world of terrorism is applying to their actions, that we are continuing to significantly try and ramp up our first line of defense, which is still the most effective line of defense, which is intelligence gathering, the prevention of these actions before they occur. And New York City has, fortunately, going back to 9/11, since that time, had a very good track record of easily several dozen directed attacks, directed in the sense of whether they were inspired, directed, or enabled against the city that have been successfully thwarted. The world has changed, and the threat picture, when I came in as commissioner in 2014, changed dramatically from Al-Qaeda in its efforts to pull off a multiple 9/11 type event to the work of ICs, which is increasingly relying on inspired, some enabled, and some directed. Our biggest concern in this country, in this city, remains the inspired, the most difficult to detect, but we continue our efforts in that regard, and John can speak to some of that, John Miller. So with that, again, we certainly express to country France, to our colleagues in law enforcement there, deepest sympathies, and we'll continue to stand in partnership and solidarity with them and as we move forward. With that, let me please introduce John Miller, who is our Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism. John,
thanks, Commissioner. At approximately 5:13 p.m. last night, the Intelligence Bureau and Counterterrorism Bureau were notified that this event was unfolding on the other side of the world. We immediately took several key steps. One, to determine whether or not this was potentially not just a runaway vehicle, but a terrorist attack of some kind. By 5:37, we had determined that that was entirely likely. So as we mined for more information, by immediately contacting our overseas posts assigned to Paris, assigned to Europol at The Hague, assigned to Interpol in Lyon, France, we began to gather string and intelligence in terms of details. What was the tactic? What was the technique? What would have been behind this attack? At the same time, wheels started turning here in New York City. Was the target the Bastille Day celebration? What Bastille Day celebrations were going on in the city? Elements from the emergency service unit, the heavily armed Hercules teams that come with patrol or bomb detection dogs, emergency service unit personnel, highway patrol, intelligence personnel were dispatched to Bastille Day celebrations that were ongoing. We put in the French overlay that we use to protect those potential targets. At the same time, our counter-terrorism CRC was dispatched to symbolic locations, potential targets, while we continued to examine the threat stream. In addition, the Strategic Response Command under Chief O'Neill and the Special Operations Division started moving towards high crowd density areas like Times Square, Herald Square, to add a more visible tactical police presence. That was essentially how the synapses fire whenever there is an attack anywhere overseas. We look at the specifics of it, and we start to counter-program against it with resources. We have been looking at and considering the use of vehicles as a weapon for some time. Starting back in 2010, both the Intelligence Bureau and the Counterterrorism Bureau started looking at countermeasures for the large vehicle as a weapon after Inspire magazine, Al-Qaeda's online publication, did an entire section featuring a large pickup truck under the headline, "The Ultimate Mowing Machine," about using vehicles to mow people down in crowded areas with some additional tactical elements that they suggested. Based on that, those of you who cover large, complicated events in New York City, those of you who understand the complex, what we refer to today as the counterterrorism overlay, have seen some of those countermeasures. The NYPD owns tons and tons of concrete block that we will assemble to block vehicles from charging at any particular event or crowd. You saw a lot of that at the Pope. You see it when the president comes. You see it during certain large events. You've seen it in Times Square when we had Super Bowl Boulevard. We also use our fleet to create an array of blocker cars as something happens in a given intersection or place, as well as our work with the Department of Transportation, the city's Landmarks Commission, and a number of other entities. Sanitation, the sanitation vehicles. But you've also seen the planting of concrete bollards, Delta barriers in areas like Times Square.
We're listening in there to a New York Police Department briefing. That's John Miller there, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism. He's talking about what went on in New York City among the police department after the Nice attack. And one of the things he said that they did, they looked at the high density areas in New York City and threw resources at that. They also looked at Bastille Day festivities to see what was still running and to examine exactly what potential threats could be faced here in the city as well. And he talked about the Hercules, the particularly specialized team here in New York City that has bomb sniffing dogs and are dispatched when there are significant threats like the one facing France right now at this moment.